I will be talking to you about a few surprises in Stilbaai. And it is actually not only myself, but me and Estelle, a partnership in all of this, with Estelle behind the camera and I behind the steering wheel of the car, and operating the GPS, and then eventually sitting behind the computer and submitting all the pictures to Virtual Museum. Stilbaai, just for those of you that don't know, there's Cape Town, Cape Agulhas, as Les said, and Stilbaai, a small little place on the coast, south coast of South Africa, in the Esequa municipality, Western Cape province in South Africa. I must admit that our focus up to now is very much on organizing and atlasing in the 75 pentads in Esequa, but that we will tell you more about on 20th of August. Up to March 2020, we had submitted a few records for the other project in Virtual Museum, but none for bird pics. Just to show you the Esequa area, there's Stilbaai again, and we're atlasing and doing bird mapping for the Virtual Museum in this area. Our first record for Virtual Museum was actually to mammal map this striped polecat, or stinkmuisond as it's called in Afrikaans, and that was in 2015, April 2015. Next to the road, going about its business without paying any attention to us, in bright sunlight, this nice polecat. So what was the surprise? It's actually very seldom seen during the day. Of the 157 photo records on Mammal Map, 72 are of roadkill, and 82 of nighttime records, camera traps and night drives, while only 3 daytime records in the Virtual Museum. So this was very special. Now, Les last time stressed the importance of submitting old photos to Virtual Museum, but he also conveyed that message to us when he and Karas visited us just before the lockdown. And we started submitting photos to bird pics when the lockdown started. And luckily for the Virtual Museum, Estelle doesn't delete photos. And I've kept all our GPS tracks for all our atlasing and other trips since 2010. And with the camera's time synchronized to the GPS, we have coordinates for all our photos. And working backwards, we have now reached January 2015 with 1,365 records. So going back to November 2015, we were atlasing to the east of Stilbaai, sitting on a dune overlooking the ocean, when this western osprey came past with a kelp gull on its tail. Now you can see it had something in its claws, whether it caught a fish or whether it robbed it from the kelp gull, we wouldn't know. But very quickly they disappeared into the distance, and as far as we could follow them, the chase was still on. Yeah, and a lot of acrobatics along the way. We've learned some important lessons during this 4 months of submitting photos, and the one is that it is very important to scan each photo very carefully, because there's often quite a lot of bycatch, what I call it, on the photos. You sometimes get the Cape Weaver on the photo of a malachite sunbird on that aloe, or a Cape teal in the background of the photo of the grey heron, etc. And then I found that the common birds are often less common on Virtual Museum. If you go to the denim bustard in Esequa, I think all of them are already in photos on the Virtual Museum, but some of the other species are less well captured. That brings us to a day in February 2015, when there was a very strong westerly wind blowing, a storm, and being Stilbaai, it is very well protected against the westerly winds, and we found a fishing trawler hiding from the storm on the bay. And we're not very good at ocean birds, but we saw these black birds. It was quite far from the shore, so it was not easy to see them. But we saw there was something there, and Estelle took a lot of photos, and we eventually identified as a white-chinned petrel. Well, there was quite a number of them around. So this is one of them. There were some other photos. For instance, this one, you can see the white chin much better. And this photo also shows the white chin petrel quite well. But in searching for the best photos to submit to Virtual Museum, I actually discovered this one as well. Now, I was stumped by this bird. I didn't know what it was. There's another photo of it. And eventually the Virtual Museum identified it as a juvenile Cape Gannet. Now, this was a little bit of a shock to me because we know the gannets, but not the juveniles, obviously. And this is more like we normally know the gannets. Then in further search, I actually saw this bird here right above the bow of the boat. And by stretching the technology, I could get this out of it. And frantically paging through our bird guides, we eventually identified it as a Pomeranian jager. Now, this was quite a surprise to us. This is a picture from the internet, which if you can get close to it, this is how it actually looks, with that interesting tail that it has. Now, what is so surprising about it is firstly, it was a lifer for us, albeit 5 years after the fact. It was the first record for Hesequa, and it is the only record on BirdPix, with only 30 records for Southern Africa in sub-op 2. And I've just collected a few snippets for the bird. Its Afrikaans name is very descriptive, a knopstert roofmeeuw. And if you divide it up into the different words, then you can directly translate it to English in a knob-tailed pirate gull or something like that. Now, the knob-tail is only fully developed in breeding-ready adult birds, but they pirate food from other seabirds and take offal from boats. They breed north of the Arctic Circle and migrate down the west coast of Africa. So they're very rare along the south and east coast of South Africa. And they normally keep close to the shore. That's probably why the people going on ocean trips to photograph the ocean-going birds don't get them. Thanks for the opportunity to share some of our surprises.
Thanks, Johan and Estelle. That's amazing. And quite amazing to get birds 5 years 5 years after you saw them to actually identify them. That's
after
great.
We haven't seen them.
Yeah. Any questions for